Hey, Scott, I want to do a deep listening demonstration with you to show this.
All
And
right,
you're not being judged. The listeners can see how well I've been able to practice the 8 steps, what they heard about them. Is that okay with you, Scott? You
let's
can
go.
feel free.
Let's
So
do it.
I'm going to ask you, Scott, what food reminds you of home?
Spaghetti and meatballs.
So it's spaghetti and meatballs, and you're feeling immediately you knew it. You feel good about it. Is that right?
That is correct.
And tell me more.
When I think of food like Italian food, I think of my grandmother. I think of sitting around the table as a child, the energy in the room, the love that went into not only making the food but serving the food. I think of her eating one small piece of meatball and me thinking she never eats, but then watching her cook and realizing she ate all the time. And then how that's gone into my own family and my own mother and my own spouse and my wife and how she takes care of our children in the same way. And so there's a warmth and a fullness that comes with something as simple as spaghetti and meatballs.
So I'm hearing you say that your grandmother, creating Italian grandmother, creating the spaghetti and meatballs, it was a way of her nurturing and giving you love in some way. And you are feeling something, it's a connection between her and you yourself and your wife and the way that you nurture your own family. And there's a sense I have of that connection giving you a grounding about the values and the way you want to live your life, even if it's also with a bit of humor about her eating secretly while cooking and not it is and a fondness and a memory you have of that time and feeling so safe and nurtured. Is that right?
It's a great interpretation. I think to this day, when I think of my grandmother, sometimes my mouth waters because I'm thinking of the experience that I had with something as simple as food.
And so it's that multi-sensory experience, which isn't just the intellect, it is the taste, it's the smell, and it's the sense of being surrounded by your family then that is so grounding for you and gives you so much pleasure, a source of great pleasure.
Yeah, when you're surrounded by all those people, it can you kind of have two choices. You can become a part of something bigger, or you can sometimes get lost. And sometimes you go in both directions. And so for me, my grandmother, even if I missed the dinner, she would have two little meatballs saved in the freezer for me that I would come home, I would come in, she would give it to me. And so even if you're lost, even if you feel like you missed out, there was something that came with it.
And so it's a sense of being valued as a person and included and thought of. You were being heard by her through those saved freezer meatballs. She cared when you weren't there. And that felt like you were valid and valuable and really increased your sense of self-worth, even.
Without question. Yeah, the level of confidence that I grew up with from those instances and those dinners around the table were something that I took with me into everything that I did and do to this day.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me, Scott. Roughly, how many questions did I ask you, roughly?
6.
I asked you what food reminds you of home, and I also asked, tell me more. Now, as a journalist, the rest of the time I was trying to encapsulate, as I was talking about in step 7, the very heart of what you said and what you didn't say. And perhaps I used my third ear to sense what was going on with you and offer it back with humility. These are borrowed clothes, not my own, for you to correct me. And sometimes if you get it wrong, that's not a problem because somebody will say, no, it wasn't quite that actually. It was this, not that, but this. And tell me more is the one question you can ask. Because unlike a journalist who's got brilliant questions, and I used to think I had brilliant questions as a journalist, but in doing so, we are seizing the steering wheel and take people down the road we want them to go down. Whereas when we only reflect back authentically without manipulation or an agenda what we understand to be the essential essence for the speaker, they can take us down different avenues. Like in my mind, I was like curious, like, what kind of recipe? Was your grandma actually Italian? I had a sense maybe she was no longer alive, but I wasn't sure. There were so many questions I could have asked, but I would have never found out so much about you, Scott. And I feel I have a completely different understanding because I let you talk about what was important. And I also feel we're so much more connected because you've had a chance to share and I have a chance to understand you.
I think it's a great example and it's very powerful. The simplicity of tell me more is a great way. And obviously, I am giving our listeners a little bit more than I might have had we just met because it is a podcast and I want to make sure that we're sharing ourselves. But that authenticity and vulnerability is also something that builds depth and connects us on a deeper level and that is how you build more connection, more better friendships, better, relationships in general.
You're quite right. And indeed, the Harvard study, the longest longitudinal study on human happiness, said it wasn't just more connections, it was more profound connections that brought happiness to people and a longer life, physically and mentally a happier life. But I should say the vulnerability and trust you talk about can also be manipulated. And that's why I've got 2 chapters on the book about ethical boundaries. So if I'm in a work situation, for example, and I deep listen to you, I need to say at some point, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, are you sure you wanna continue?" Or, "Treat what you've shared with me with respect and with confidence unless you are happy for it to go further." And there's also boundaries about ourselves because you might tell me things I cannot bear, things that I cannot hold. And then again, we need to say, hearing that there's a lot of really difficult stuff going on for you right now, and at the same time, I'm finding that really hard myself. Maybe it's triggering stuff in myself. Perhaps can we have the conversation later? Or is there more support that you need from people who are more experienced professionals who can help you to unpack what's clearly been very traumatic for you?
Yeah, that's a great reference, and these are all a part of the book. How has it been, just from a personal perspective, how has it been getting this out to the world? What does it
It
feel like?
It just feels great, and especially last night, it was my, UK launch yesterday because, of course, when you write a book, it's really personal and you'll spend your hours in the library and going and forward and all your images and all the parts and the research. And then the idea that other people, strangers even, will read the book and take it into their own lives and change the way they relate. And even last night at the book launch, getting people to practice it, seeing my friends who, I mean, so many different parts of my life and work life and school and university and, at King's College and at Oxford and all sorts of parts of my life and people from a lot of different backgrounds talk to strangers. And then they wouldn't stop the exercise. They continued having these profound encounters, felt hugely uplifting and exciting that you're unleashing other people to make this their own. And I say very clearly in the book, this is not a dogmatic, rules based approach. This is inspirational ideas for people to take this into their own lives in a way that makes sense for them.
I think people sometimes just need an excuse or a reason to want to go deeper with people. I think when you give them permission and you're able to actually give them an exercise, some of the people you would think would never be interested are the ones that are most into it, and that's what it sounded like it was like for you last night.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I found that, when I train people around the world, I was just in Abu Dhabi last month at a culture summit. And, people who were kind of coming a bit skeptical and they shared that afterwards, like, I wasn't really sure. I kind of turned up here by mistake, And then when they have this conversation, somebody at Pearson said to me, I've shared something in 4 minutes to a colleague I have never told anyone in my whole life. And being able giving people the tools to be able to have these really profound connections feels really meaningful for me, that they are empowered. They don't have to, learn to be a full-scale therapist to be able to use some of these approaches. It's about democratizing what coaches and therapists and counselors and mediators do. So everybody can have an opportunity to listen more deeply to their most intimate family members, people in their community, at work, and indeed strangers, people, in the pharmacy. The other day, let me tell you a little story. I went to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription for my daughter, some drugs. And this is local, like just round the corner. And there was a lady sitting down on a plastic chair waiting for hers. And the pharmacist said, "So tell me, when was your daughter born?" And I said, "Oh, 3rd of July, 21." And she said to me, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Wait a minute. No, no. I mean, 3rd of July, 2001. She's 20, almost 24." And I had a laugh. And the lady sitting down said, "What do you mean? How can you not know the birth date of your own daughter?" And I said, "You're quite right. How foolish is that?" And then she said, we were talking about age a bit, and the lady said, "My grandmother, it's really exciting. She's 97." And I said, "Wow, what an amazing age. You sound really proud of her." And she said, "Yeah, I am proud. I am proud." And she trailed into silence, and I had a sense something else was going on. So I said, "I'm sensing that there's some ambiguity there. You're proud, but something else is happening." And she said, "Yeah, I think that I'm going to die before my grandmother." And we then talked a bit about what was going on, her medical condition and her worries, and she started crying. And then she apologized for crying, but she said, "Thank you for listening." And I had a sense that she needed to be listened to, but she had no one to share that with. And by just being able to be there in that moment, be present enough, have a fun connection about my mistake, being vulnerable, saying, "Yeah, you're quite right, that was pretty silly," allowed her to feel safe and connected to me and take that opportunity to share what was obviously really worrying her. And, I left feeling that she had been heard. I felt great. And I felt we had this connection with a stranger. I don't know her name. I don't know who she is, but it just felt really, really meaningful.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.